Good evening and welcome to Nourish the Soul talk radio show and podcast. This is your place to sit back, relax, and go on a journey of self discovery. And really, what we do here is we explore our sacred human body to include our mind, our feelings, our heart, our soul, and how these elements interplay and weave into our life to create our existence, right? Who we are in this very moment. So I want to thank you for being here and coming along on this journey. And if you ever miss a show, you can now download the podcast on Spotify and Amazon and iHeartRadio and catch that episode that you weren't able to tune in on the live at 6 p.m. and get. So I like to mix things up. Today, I'm doing another solo show. We've had a series of amazing guests. And so I encourage you to tune in and take a listen to those shows. But tonight, we're talking about a subject that I've explored with you all before, and it's really nothing I'd say new, but absolutely worth diving into because it is so important for our current world events, our current, way in which we are seeing things unfold, right? It's a very unique time. Just this past week, um, we witnessed a part of our own country, Northern Carolinas, the Western Northern Carolinas, in fact, and parts of Florida and Florida again today get hit with extreme weather, and many people's lives were impacted. And we are continuing to diverse places within our world where there just is no peace. There's actually quite a bit of conflict and disagreement and war. And within our own lives, I mean, how many of us can, you know, attest to knowing somebody who's going through something pretty difficult right now? Maybe that relates to a loved one passing, perhaps some sort of physical ailment or pain they are facing, or some kind of unexpected twist in their life, whether that be a job opportunity that is lost, or that they are facing being let go. Economically, a lot of people are in places where they wish that things were different, right? That they had more savings or more room to spend, especially with the upcoming holiday season coming just around the corner. We've got about a month and some to go. Well, excuse me, tonight, tonight we are going to talk about transforming our pain into power and really shifting this victimhood type of mindset that we can get caught up in into self responsibility. And I'm going to weave into the show how this pain into power shift, this victimhood into self responsibility, really plays a significant role in our physical health, in our well being, and really highlight how, when we make this transition in our perception of ourselves in life, our whole world can change. So, I want to invite you all, as I do when I do my solo shows, to come into presence with me, taking a deep breath together. Let's all make space within ourselves to really intend that this show is our safe space where we can really connect more deeply with ourselves, and that each episode is an opportunity to see something that is necessary within us that we are needing to wake up to, that our soul, something deep within us, has called us to the show to really unlock. And by no coincidence that we're listening and tuning in, because we're going to not only just to unlock it, but set the intention that we're actually going to let it go and open up space within us for something new, something higher in vibration, something more aligned to our truth within us to come in and touch our awareness so that we ourselves can reach into a new reality and start to shape our life from that place. Because transformation can happen that quickly, and our life can change in just a moment, just a choice that we make in one moment. Our whole world can be different. And so, as we place a hand on our heart and we all take a breath together, breathing in deeply, really filling our body, really filling it up with air, with our breath, with this prana, this life force, and letting it all go all the way out. One more time together, breathing in really deeply, filling every part of our body. Keep breathing as much as you can and letting it all out with a big sigh. Feeling the spaciousness now within our heart center, affirming I am connected to the light of my heart now, the truth of myself, who I really am. I tell my mind now to relax, to just sit back. This is now my heart's journey. I allow myself to look through the eyes of my heart, to hear through the eyes of my heart, and to make choices through the eyes of my heart now. So, thank you for setting that intention together with me and coming into this really sacred, beautiful space. Power, right? Pain into power, shifting from victimhood to self-responsibility. Well, I know so many of us are going through different things. Like I mentioned, maybe you know someone who was in Western North Carolina and they've experienced great devastation or loss or even death of a family member or friend. Maybe you know someone that's going through a tremendous amount of difficulty, whether that's physically, mentally, emotionally, as it relates to some sort of pain or ailment or some sort of job related loss or economic impact that they're having trouble managing. Whatever it is, we're all going through something, you know, to some degree, in some level, some at greater levels than someone else. But to one may call difficult, to another may say, no, that's not too bad. So it's really dependent on how each individual navigates a challenge. But one thing we really want to invite into our heart this evening is that none of us in life ever get to escape pain. Not a single one of us, at least I have never met, and I have worked with hundreds of clients and have had the privilege of speaking to many, many people. I've never met somebody who said they've gone through life never feeling hurt or having felt a pain or experienced a challenge. So we all go through that. If that alone can unify us in our shared experience as a group, a collective on this planet, then let it, right? Because we all do go through things that change us. And when these events happen in our world, whether it's politically within our own country or globally around our 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 planet, right? Or within our own interpersonal lives, these big things, these challenges that affect us, they can often, if we don't have the tools or skills or healthy perspectives can really hit us hard and can impact us in ways that can really affect our whole life and everybody that's in it. And that's why it's so important right now to really help people understand what it means to shift our pain into power and to understand what victimhood is. Because I think, and I really believe it's one of the biggest limitations we as a cohort of people face. I think this perspective of victimhood as a collective humanity, as a shared family of human beings, regardless of our race, gender, or religion, face is this perspective of victimhood. So I want to begin the broadcast right now by just gently and lovingly exploring what exactly that is, and how to identify it. Because victimhood is extremely powerful because we all are creators. And I want to be very clear in my stance here as somebody who's going on a live broadcast and talking about victimhood and pain into power, where it is such a sensitive subject. And by no shape or form am I minimizing anybody's pain or suffering that they are going through, but offering a perspective that can definitely take us easily out of that kind of way of viewing something and into a place that aligns with more of our truth, of our heart, of a knowing, of trust, of power, of peace, of love. So first and foremost, before I even go into victimhood, I definitely want to share that my value or principle in which I view life is that we are all creators. We are all indeed a spark of the divine that have uniquely brought its own perspective into physical form, into these temples of form we call body, into these vessels. And that means we've been made in the image of the creator. We are no different than the creator itself, whether we call that God or source or the infinite intelligence. We are a extension of it in physical form. And so as I express this to you, I'm going to leave you on this note. And we're going to go a little bit farther into that as we dive into victimhood in the next segment and get you pondering on that. We are a creator. So let's take a quick break and we'll come back and dive back in.
Are you a conscious co-creator? Are you on a quest to raise your vibration and your consciousness? I'm Sam Leibowitz, your conscious consultant, and on my show, The Conscious Consultant Hour, Awakening Humanity, we will touch upon all these topics and more. Listen live at our new time on Thursdays at 12 noon Eastern Time. That's The Conscious Consultant Hour, Awakening Humanity, Thursdays, 12 noon on TalkRadio.nyc.
Are you a high-achieving, growth-oriented leader? Are you interested in developing your authentic leadership while creating a healthy, inclusive workplace? Hi, I'm Dr. Mira Brancu, host of The Hard Skills on TalkRadio.nyc at 5 p.m. Eastern on Tuesdays, where we discuss how leaders develop the hard skills needed to make a greater impact. We interview experts, have live coaching, and tackle these challenges. Listen to The Hard Skills on Tuesday at 5 p.m. Eastern on TalkRadio.nyc.
If you don't have your health, what do you really have? It's time to feel good in your body and shift from struggle to ease. Hi, I'm Elizabeth Tripp, your host of Nourish the Soul, where we explore the sacred wisdom of your body while you sit back, relax, and go on a journey of self-discovery. Join me every Tuesday at 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time to awaken your heart, transform your well-being, and unlock a deeper understanding of yourself.
You're listening to Talk Radio NYC. Uplift, educate, empower.
Welcome back to Nourish the Soul. We are diving into a really valuable and powerful discussion of pain into power, shifting from victimhood to self-responsibility. And I'm just laying down some foundational ways in which I invite you to consider, as these are very powerful ways that I have invited my perspective of life to be seen through. And for this discussion and this topic, I really want to emphasize that I believe we're all creators. I believe that every single one of us, regardless of if you've chosen to be a good person, quote unquote, or a bad person, quote unquote, and do good things or bad things, within all of us, there is a spark of divine. There is a spark of divinity. I believe we've all come from a light like our sun, and we are just sunbeams of this light, individually, these beams of light that have come down into these physical bodies, each to have a unique experience. And I believe many, many, many of us are asleep and don't actually realize this, and that they feel that divinity and source or their power is outside of them, and that they can only attain it when they're worthy, when they've repented enough, when they've done enough good deeds, or that in fact it is never possible because it may not even exist. And I feel that many people, because of this, being asleep, are not aware of how powerful their minds actually are in creating their life. And in that, I see many people creating unintentionally, unconsciously, and by no surprise there being then so much struggle and so much drama and so much suffering in our lives. And I believe that there is a power within us and within each of us to reclaim our life, to reclaim the way in which we walk through life, to be able to learn a certain set of lessons that are necessary for us in this unique expression of divinity, to then be able to fulfill something that's very special to each of us. And so why is that so important? Because that means that as a creator, right, made in the image of, we could say, source of infinite intelligence of God, right, we get to create whatever we want. And because we've come into this existence with having forgotten that, and having to then go through certain sets of experiences that change our perspective of ourselves, often for the negative, right? We can live an entire 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 years or more seeing ourselves through one fixed opinion that can often cause us a lot of stress and pressure, and which leads to then dis-ease and unhappiness and debilitation, mental illness, depression, to just conflict and giving up. And I see this happening to many, many people, but it doesn't have to be the case, because we can equally create a positive. We can equally create good in anything we experience. It's a will of our own power that we have. But many, many people have forgotten this, and it's become very easy to become a victim. And our bodies, let me tell you, they take the brunt of it. Victim mindset, going through a painful event and feeling as though this experience has, hurt them, and therefore they are being punished, or that they are suffering, and that therefore then they need the sympathy of others, or they blame even others for the cause of how they're feeling, is so rampant and alive. And because of this way of being, our health absolutely takes the brunt. It absolutely bears the impact. I mean, we're living in times where the health industry is actually collapsing because there's so much disease. There's so many sick people. And we have to ask ourselves, why is it with all of this technology, with all of this, all of these resources to our food supply, to medicine, that we are the sickest we've ever really been, in the last 100 years as a population with so much modern technology. So I believe it's our mindset, our point of view, our perspective, because I believe as creators, that's what we are. We are a perspective, seeing life through a perspective, and we have the ability to choose perspectives. But victimhood, it is a way in which we go through an experience, like I said, and we really aren't able to take responsibility for the way we feel, and rather we look outside of ourselves to be for the cause, and we blame others. And it can feel like, in relationships, like gaslighting, like, we're always the wrong, we're always the bad, we're never doing anything that's right. In our political arenas or environments, it can kind of sound like, they'll promise one thing but they won't really do it, or this bad thing happened and it was caused by them, so that's why I'm in this position. So it's always like making somebody else responsible rather than yourself, or making something else responsible rather than yourself, like a circumstance, the cause for your pain, your suffering, your hurt, whatever it is that it's not right that you're going through. Okay. So that's the language to look out for and be aware of. And it's learned. It's learned. It's learned generationally. It's learned in all cultures around the world. But particularly in the Western culture, I see it a lot, I see it so much. It's a way of saying, no, that's not how I feel, isn't my fault. It's their fault. They said that to me, or they said that about me. And so we really want to get aware. It's like we point externally and we say, okay, that thing or that person is the cause for my situation, for my pain, my feelings, and my outlook or world view. And if they were different and they changed, then my life would change and my circumstance would be different. And because they're not, nothing is. So we have no power in this, just by the way. Our victimhood is an absolute avoidance of power. And often in victimhood, we think power is force. And so reactivity and quick to judge and to make others wrong is a way to find control, when really in victimhood, we often feel very out of control. We feel often really like we don't really have the true power that we would like. And therefore, by making others the cause or the blame, gives us that false sense of security that we have that power back, when really it's false. It really is. It is a false sense of power. So in saying that, I just want to give you like a very quick example, and then I'm gonna, kind of answer. I know there's a question online about this subject, so I'm going to answer it. I've worked with so many clients, so many people, and a storyline that I see that falls within this victimhood type like mindset that's very rampant, very pervasive. And it's been pervasive in my life. So I'm I'm not exempt by this by any means. And I can talk about it because I'm very secure in recognizing when it shows up and when it has, and how to nurture myself through this. But I found that many people fundamentally believe that there is something wrong or bad about them. This is fundamentally across the board when I work with people, and have really listened to the real root or source of their issues. That there's an underlying belief and opinion that there's something truly defective about them. And I want to offer that, this kind of belief can easily come about in our lives. For my own example, growing up being very sensitive, feeling the environment around me on a level or depth that often I don't think others had the capacity to or ability to. There was a lot of internalizing I was doing. And to comfort myself, I found food as a way to make myself feel better. And in doing that, my body actually started to gain weight. And very early on in my younger years, I was teased. And who wouldn't, if by their peers they were laughed and pointed and giggled at, in their own perspective of what was happening, make an opinion that there was something wrong or bad about them, something they needed to maybe fix because it wasn't right, as it could relate to their physical appearance. And if that is never processed, if that is never addressed, could you imagine how that one perspective could create a lens for that individual in which nobody's safe to be around because they have to be cautious in the way that they express because they might be judged because they've been through that experience themselves. Because of that, they can feel like maybe people aren't kind, they're not nice, or that when they joke around with them, they are just truly just teasing them and being mean. And it starts to build and build and build. And this idea that everybody's the cause for their insecurity, their lack of confidence, their inability to truly relax and be themselves, that it's everybody else around them, starts to grow very deep roots in their psyche. And it becomes very natural for when that person, that little girl, grows up and somebody, says something that maybe brings that hurt, that insecurity up, or maybe that sense of not being confident, to lash out and then want to defend themselves or make that other person wrong for saying something that didn't settle right with them. And that can create so much conflict and so much misunderstanding. And all because that individual doesn't yet know they have more power to understand themselves from a new perspective or a different point of view than what they did when they were younger. So that's how victimhood gets created and spreads out into our life. So we're going to take a quick break, and when we get back, we're going to start diving into self-responsibility.
Hey everybody, it's Tommy D, the nonprofit sector connector, coming at you from my attic. Each week here on TalkRadio.nyc, I host a program, Philanthropy in Focus. Nonprofits impact us each and every day, and it's my focus to help them amplify their message and tell their story. Listen each week at 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time until 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, right here on TalkRadio.nyc.
Were you an essential worker during the pandemic? If you needed to learn stages of epilepsy, did you depend on advocates? Did you use new innovations to cope with mental and neurological issues? Maintaining high quality of life and keeping good mental health are what we all strive for. I'm Frank R. Harrison, host of Frank About Health, and each week top healthcare influencers, professionals, and innovators answer these questions and more. Stay tuned on Thursdays at 5 p.m. on TalkRadio.nyc, and I will continue to be frank about health with all of you.
If you don't have your health, what do you really have? It's time to feel good in your body and shift from struggle to ease. Hi, I'm Elizabeth Tripp, your host of Nourish the Soul, where we explore the sacred wisdom of your body while you sit back, relax, and go on a journey of self-discovery. Join me every Tuesday at 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time to awaken your heart, transform your well-being, and unlock a deeper understanding of yourself.
You're listening to Talk Radio NYC at www.talkradio.nyc. Now broadcasting 24 hours a day.
Welcome back. We're talking about pain into power, shifting out of victimhood into self-responsibility. I'm your host, Elizabeth Tripp, and this is an exciting conversation. We're exploring, right, how our own perception of ourselves can build a very, self-limiting point of view of our entire life. And, our own physical vessels, these temples, which I consider sacred spaces in which we live in, take the brunt of it. And what we were discussing was my own personal story of just giving an example of how easy it is to create a victim mindset. How many of us have ever felt like we were wrong or made wrong or done something wrong and or bad, and there was something we need to fix about ourselves. And I gave the example of just my own physical body and being teased, and how much of that from the teasing changed my perception to that, it wasn't safe for me to be myself around people. I had to maybe change who I was to, help them accept me so that I could be someone that they enjoyed and not made poke fun of, right? Or that I needed to change about me physically or my appearance, that, or the ways in which we think we need to do for others in order to make them happy so that things are good. It builds a whole life. And so I'm just giving you some examples to think about in your own world. Where maybe in your life have you been building a foundation of around yourself that perhaps there's some element of you that's wrong or bad or needs fixing, that puts you in a victim mindset, makes you get reactive towards others, and as though them being themselves, maybe they're in a mood, maybe they're not the most jolliest that day. They say something that you don't agree with, and you can fly off the handle, or you can internalize and take personally and feel hurt, and then feel as though, there's some sort of resentment you're carrying towards them for what they say or how they are. And that can create a lot of division. And division in our own interpersonal lives, if we go out into our work lives and we bring that, and then we bring that into our communities, and then the communities bring that into our culture, becomes a way of living. Really does. It becomes a way in which we live. So, really important. My husband says this to me all the time, and I love him for this. It always comes back to self. We are always the ones in the driver's seats. Our issues, our pains, the feelings that we have are created by us, and that everyone in our life is been placed here on purpose, positively, even if they bring up something quote unquote negatively charged within us, right? Like an anger or a hurt or a sadness, to be able to see that within ourselves, to grow from it. It is never, ever, ever about somebody else. And that extends to the most extreme cases. And I definitely could be, grilled for saying that. And I'm okay with saying that. But there are definite cases in which someone could say, how could you say that when that person is a victim? And if someone is willing to have that conversation with me, I will go into more further detail to support my perspective. But I really want to say that from a loving space, we create everything. And in the even unexpected or quote unplanned, we have opportunity to choose what we want to create. And we have not been taught that in our lives. There's no school to educate us on this as human beings. And generally, within our family lives, there really isn't a lot of attention given to this and nurtured within our children to be these self-responsible types of individuals. Because what is self-responsibility? But let's go into it. It's the practice of taking ownership for your actions and your decisions and your emotions. It's really the practice of recognizing, okay, if I am a spark of the creator, a divine spark of light in a human physical form, then my thoughts are divine, right? Good or bad. My actions from my thoughts that create emotions, right? Emotional states, and then the decisions I make in those states, they're all divine, right? So if I act in a way that is reactive or impatient or unkind or unloving, right? That's on me to take responsibility for. And it's not for me to point out to the outside world and say, you caused that to me. But it's also very clear that if you're in the habit of taking responsibility and you're in a situation where somebody else isn't, then there can be an imbalance, right? Because you may be in a dynamic where they're unwilling to take ownership in their creative power, right? To be responsible for their thoughts and feelings and putting all of their stuff on you to be responsible for, and saying that if you change and are better, then their life will improve. That's where we want to say, that's victimhood. And really, in a relationship, if that's the space we could look at, is addressing, I think this is a question that Lenny brought up online, that's a place where then we want to be able to recognize that as two people who've come together who are creators, are sparks of divinity within each of their being, that each individual is responsible for what's going on with them and how they're choosing to communicate inside that sacred relationship space. And that is a place where you're learning through the other and that they're learning through you, and that each of you have, agreed to be these catalysts for growth. And that as you expand in that, even in our friendships, we recognize that as somebody displays reactivity or impatience or gets down in the dumps and maybe does want to put the blame on you or place the responsibility, that we don't ever have to take that personally, because we get to decide. We get to take ownership of the fact that we're not responsible for how they feel. We're not the ones that created their own perception of ourselves. We played a role, but we don't have to be accountable for how they choose to navigate the way that we are in their life. Only they can take on that exploration, because only they know why they hold a certain perception that may be disturbing them or causing them some sort of frustration or anger within them. So it's a delicate space of realizing that each of us are sovereign. Each of us inherently have the freedom within ourselves to, at any moment, create opinions about ourselves, about others, about our world that are going to ultimately shape our reality and affect our well-being. So when we're in this self-responsibility, right, we're actually, really emphasizing the power that we have, regardless of what we experience, that we get to make conscious choices in our lives that allow us to have more control rather than being, let's say, just for the sake of this conversation, a victim to life, right? That things are happening for us, not to us. And in that self-responsibility, a whole new vibration starts to emerge, because we tend to detach from the downward spiral that a victimhood can go into, where it's like, whoa, me, this is something that only, you can help solve, or that you caused and therefore then need to make better, or that I have no way out. And, there's nothing that I can do. That's a victim language. Or I didn't, mean for that to happen. It happened and it was so awful. Why would something so awful happen to me? We really want to pause as a culture, and this is important in self-responsibility, as labeling things. We are so attached to forming an opinion automatically about everything, when in our creative power, what if everything could be neutral? What if there is really no right or wrong or good or bad? That in fact, it's just an experience. That, okay, for example, the political landscape we're in, it's an experience. Why does it have to be the right side and the wrong side? Why does it have to be the good side and the bad side? That's division. What if it's an experience of a culture going through, a shift in the way in which people who are in leadership roles are navigating our culture in the present moment towards the future? And that is our responsibility to be able to look at this and discern, okay, what do I want to give my conscious attention towards? What do I want to put my conscious focus towards that actually empowers me and doesn't hurt intentionally other people, right? That is more of a self-responsible type of view, versus saying, if you vote this way, then you're this, a idiot or a jerk or whatever. And if you vote that way, you're that. And really splitting people apart and then labeling them according to their inability to see your point of view. There's so much energy there, and it's so conflicting, and it's so heavy, and it's so dense, that why as a creator would you even want to get yourself hooked in too far? Because there's an opportunity to actually really say, okay, perhaps this is all happening for a greater reason that is beyond even what I can see. And that my role in this is to remain positive, so that my family stays healthy and positive, my coworkers stay healthy and positive, my community stays healthy and positive, and I bring a conscious shift then, therefore, as it ripples out into life. Think about that. Let's take a quick break and we'll be right back.
Are you a high-achieving, growth-oriented leader? Are you interested in developing your authentic leadership while creating a healthy, inclusive workplace? Hi, I'm Dr. Mira Broncu, host of The Hard Skills on TalkRadio.nyc at 5 p.m. Eastern on Tuesdays, where we discuss how leaders develop the hard skills needed to make a greater impact. We interview experts, have live coaching, and tackle these challenges. Listen to The Hard Skills on Tuesday at 5 p.m. Eastern on TalkRadio.nyc.
Hey everybody, it's Tommy D, the nonprofit sector connector, coming at you from my attic. Each week here on TalkRadio.nyc, I host a program, Philanthropy in Focus. Nonprofits impact us each and every day, and it's my focus to help them amplify their message and tell their story. Listen each week at 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time until 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, right here on TalkRadio.nyc.
Are you a conscious co-creator? Are you on a quest to raise your vibration and your consciousness? I'm Sam Leibowitz, your conscious consultant, and on my show, The Conscious Consultant Hour Awakening Humanity, we will touch upon all these topics and more. Listen live at our new time on Thursdays at 12 noon Eastern Time. That's The Conscious Consultant Hour Awakening Humanity, Thursdays 12 noon on TalkRadio.nyc.
You're listening to Talk Radio NYC at www.talkradio.nyc. Now broadcasting 24 hours a day.
Welcome back. This is Elizabeth Tripp, your host of Nourish the Soul, and we're talking about pain into power, victimhood into self-responsibility. And I think I'm answering a lot of these questions online, but I also have a question, passive-aggressive reactions, to present times from its mirroring to our past wounding. So, passive-aggressive, first to just kind of relate this topic, it's a way of proving a point. when somebody's passive aggressive, it's often a way in which they're trying to prove to somebody or someone else their rightness. Okay, and so rightness in that sense, that bullheadedness, like that we could call it, that in itself, yes, can feed victimhood, because if somebody challenges their rightness, then it can spur a sense of there being a disagreement based off of how one sees a point of view versus how the other perceives it in being right or what is wrong. And so to handle that, is to simply see that whenever somebody is really gung-ho about proving a point and being in their rightness, right? There's obviously something within themselves that they're having to prove to themselves about being right. That once they do, then they'll feel good, or they'll have the confidence that they're smart, or that, they have, the power within them to, see the truth, or the way, or the figure it all out, and we can kind of smile at that from the heart and go, okay, I know that energy. I've felt that before within myself. And I can forgive my mind, my human mind, for thinking that way, but it is just my mind, because my heart would never need to prove something about myself and to hold that kind of energy towards another until they agree with me, because that's force, and the heart never forces. It allows, it flows, and it gives people the space and time at their own pace to decide, to make choice, to be in the space that they're in for as long as they need to. There was another question about negative reinforcement within a child. So, if we grow up in a household where we were exposed to a lot of negativity, whether that's you're not right, you're not doing this, you're this, you're that, a constant breaking down of our confidence, of our self-esteem. Yeah, definitely. You had probably one of the toughest places to flourish in, because it's very difficult to thrive in an environment like that. And so essentially for you, it's really about coming into an acknowledgement and accepting that what you experienced, yes, was difficult, but that rather than saying it was our parents' fault, could it be that we chose them for a greater purpose, to open up to a greater self-compassion, or a expansion of our own self-love for the way in which we treat ourselves? That this has been a model for us to then learn from, to be able to change maybe our fixed points of view in which we've learned from them about ourselves, to something completely different, which is the process. Which, part of transforming our pain into power is recognizing it is a process. It's an acknowledgement. It's identifying that there's a lesson in everything. There's a lesson to, I just had someone share with me that they were on an airplane and a flight attendant was extremely aggressive and forceful with them. And, it really shook them up. And there was an opportunity to maybe beat themselves up for the way that they, maybe reacted slightly to such an intense energy. But overall, in the end, they handle it very well. And what was really coming to light was just being able to see people in their own pain and not personalizing it ourselves. Recognizing we're not forcing this person to be this way. Nothing in our behavior, could have been that extreme. In her case, in the situation, she was just sitting in her seat with a little oversized bag, and the attendant said, the bag was too big, and she really got very, very direct with her. And to realize that when people come in that type of energy, that if we feel something within ourselves come up because of that, there's just a part of us that we haven't made peace with. That this is an opportunity because of their behavior that we can find a place within ourselves where we need to make peace because their energy is bothering us, because their energy is triggering us. And gosh, what a gift to become more present to the creator within ourselves, to return back home to a truth of love and love that energy, love that thing that isn't at peace within us that came up through that person's behavior, their reactivity, their dominance, their need to have control. And that's the beautiful thing, because if we can see everyone and everything as gifts, as opportunities to grow, to expand our understanding of ourselves, then nothing is bad. Nothing is wrong. And yes, some of us are dealt with different extremes of what we go through. But what unifies us, and I'll say this again, is that nobody in this world that I've ever talked to has ever gone through life without having to face a challenge or pain. Both. And so that brings us together. And the stories we share and the ways in which we get through things and the faith we can find and the people that are kind and good are everywhere. It's just a matter of opening ourselves up and looking for it, right? And not personalizing. So some really great tools and strategies that I teach my clients is this act of compassion for ourselves. Listen, we were all kids who all at some point felt scared based off of what we saw, what we experienced, what was happening to us. And through that fear, made an opinion that was very judgmental. Likely that we were wrong, we were bad, we were not enough, that we need to fix some element of ourselves, be different so that we can survive, that we can get through. And that's what separated us, that point, from the truth. And it is getting back to those points within our childhood, within our psyche, and resolving them and making peace with them, that we can free ourselves from so much of the drama and the pain that we continually face, and that we continually are choosing to suffer because that's all we know. It's all we've been telling ourselves, that it's their fault, they're the cause, they're the reason, or this is the cause, the circumstances, the thing that I'm in has nothing to do with me. It's just how it happened, right? We want to change that and realize, no, wait a second. We all have a superpower mind and a childlike energy that has once lived, that likely misunderstood ourselves, likely made assumptions and conclusions that definitely separate us from a vitality and light and well-being that we so deserve. And because our vessels are these transparent channels, they really are. They're receptors of energy for frequencies of our mind and our emotions to flow through. We can create illness by just staying in victim mindset. We can absolutely create disease by being in this sort of space where everybody else is the cause but ourselves. So it always comes back to us. So we want to recognize that when we're blaming, to pause, take a few breaths, ask yourself, what can I do to change my response? That's just a great place to start, where you can take back that control. You can start setting healthy boundaries. You can even, start practicing gratitude, and you can also find somebody to talk to. Support is often so helpful because it can change how we really start to, experience things and see things in a different light. But also, one of the greatest things we can do is start with our declaration. I have the power to shape my life. I am powerful. And so I really want to leave you with that antidote, that prescription. Use that. You are powerful. You can change your life, and you have everything you need within your own life right now to do that. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining tonight's live show. It's been a real, true pleasure. And if you want more, if you need to, connect more, visit my website, elizabethtripp.com, and or join our tribe and community, the Inner Light Tribe, theinnerlighttribe.com, to continue your journey of awakening your heart and really embracing your true power. We welcome you with open arms. Thank you so much, and I bid you adieu, and until we see each other next, namaste. Thank you.